Walking through the orchard here with my friend and fruit tree enthusiast, Tom Spellman. We came upon a tree where all the leaves had fallen off, loaded with persimmons. We're gonna take and talk about this tree. We're gonna grab one of these giant Fuyu Persimmons. At the end of this video, we're gonna do a taste test. I'm so curious. Let's get busy. Tom, this is obviously one of the most beautiful trees, has this amazing foliage. First of all, I noticed there's fruit on here, but there are no leaves. Is this thing dead?
No, Cameron, it's not dead. It's going to sleep. It's going into its dormant stage. So the issue right now when persimmons start to go dormant, when you have this foliage on with the fall color that's very similar to the color of the fruit, the birds don't see it. So now, as the foliage drops off and you've got these big, beautiful Christmas ornaments out here, the birds start to come in and do their damage. So over the next few days, you want to get the rest of this fruit off the tree, and it's perfectly ripe right now. In fact, I noticed a bird pecking on a couple of them as we were walking up. So
those caught our attention. We thought, oh, look at that thing. What's it pecking at? And it was pecking at this persimmon.
Absolutely. So I think we need to pick one of these ourselves and give it a shot.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to trying this. I know I'm really familiar with the Fuyu Persimmon. My dad's place had those, and those are super astringent. It was like biting into a banana peel if it wasn't fully ripe. Right. And when it was fully ripe, but then it was super squishy. But these Fuyu Persimmons are way different than that.
Exactly. All of these Fuyu types can be eaten when they're still crunchy and firm. So a variety like this, Giant Fuyu or Jiro Fuyu or Gosho or Emoto, they're all Fuyu types, and you can literally just pick those off the tree and eat them like an apple.
I know some fruit are able to ripen off of the tree and some need to stay on the tree to ripen. Where do persimmons land with that?
They will absolutely go into a more physically mature stage of ripeness after they're picked. So I could pick this fruit now while it's firm. I could set it on the kitchen counter. I can come back in 2 or 3 weeks. It'll be softened, it'll be a little brighter in color, and the flavor's spectacular.
It's interesting how even with those hachiyas, once you get past the astringency, the flavor just seems to develop more and more. I can't wait to see how these taste. Now, is there anything unique to a persimmon that is not really true about other fruit trees that somebody might plant in terms of either zones or their hardiness or any of this?
You know, they're very adaptable to different zones. I mean, you can grow persimmons in San Diego, California. You can grow persimmons in Boise, Idaho. You can grow persimmons in South Carolina. They'll adapt to a vast, geographic region. So they're one of those varieties that will grow just about anywhere.
If you're in the United States, chances are you can grow persimmon really well.
Sure.
That's cool. I know that a lot of fruit trees produce fruit on wood that grew last year. So in other words,
Right.
one year it puts out the wood and then it has buds, and the next season is when it fruits. But that isn't the case with persimmons.
No, not necessarily. Persimmons will actually produce on new growth in the spring off of last year's wood. So you want to make sure when you're pruning that, just like you did when you summer pruned, you made a cut and then you made a cut, but you have some of last year's growth on there. So this is where your new growth will come out and give you flowers and fruit. So persimmons are not like a peach where you want to leave 3 feet of branch of last year's growth. They're not like a cherry or an apple or a pear that produce off of a flowering spur. They'll absolutely produce off of new wood that is growing off of last year's growth.
So if you were going to come through and prune, I mean, I did a lot of the pruning, but any tips for somebody who is going to be doing pruning on their persimmon to get kind of maximum fruit production?
Well, what you did was your summer pruning. You did your size control. So now this tree is at a reasonable size where you can get to every branch on the tree. So what you want to do now is look for any dead wood that's in there. Usually toward the center, you'll get a lot of these little branches that decline because they've been in too much shade. So come through, take out some of this wood that's obviously not going to regrow next season, and just do a little bit of thinning on it. Where I have interruptive growth, like right here where I've got this branch pushing right into that next line.
It's turning into a whole V right here.
Yeah, I'm going to come in and take that out.
This is going to continue kind of causing problems. Now
I'm going to open up the center a little bit. I'm going to take out all of that, old wood, and just kind of keep it light and airy and size managed. And as long as you're leaving these laterals on here from last season's growth, you're always going to get a new flush of growth, a new fruit.
Awesome. Tom, I actually wrote an ebook called 9 Things I Wish I Knew Before Starting My Backyard Orchard and Garden. And I think you should download this and read it. Learning these different things and trying different things, and even when it comes to pruning methods, a lot of this is just experiential too. Paying attention to your tree when you come out and prune, or when you come out and see where the fruit is actually formed, that helps to inform what you do the next season.
Cameron, one of the things that I stress in every workshop, every lecture that I do, is spend time with your trees. Once you go out and live a couple of seasons in your landscape with your trees, you can see where they bloom, when they bloom, how the flowers set, turn into small fruit. You can watch it mature through the season. And once you look at that a couple of times, you'll always know what to expect going forward. You know, one of the questions I get all the time is, well, what wood is going to produce fruit for me? Well, it depends on what type of tree. So by looking at those trees and spending time with those trees, you're going to develop that knowledge and be able to work with them going forward.
After this video, you may want to just go and look at your trees. If you have multiple trees, just look at this one and where's the fruit coming from? And how is this thing leafing? You might just go pay attention to some things you hadn't looked at before. Okay, I'm staring at this persimmon over your shoulder. I want to try this thing. Let's cut it off and go taste it.
Let's do it. So Cameron, what a beautiful piece of fruit. Obviously, the birds are in favor.
Yeah, they thought so too.
They've done their number on them. Now, I used to supply fruit for a couple of dessert chefs, and they specifically would always ask me, give me the bird-pecked fruit. If it's got 1 or 2 little peck marks, that's what I want. That's going to be full flavor. It's going to be the best that we can get. Now, a lot of people would take a fruit like that and they'd say, oh, well, it's damaged. I'm going to throw it away. I'm never going to do that. This is as good as it gets.
Before we cut into it, I do have a question, because now that we have it on the counter, you've got me thinking, what's the best way to store this fruit on your counter?
Well, you're not going to store bird-pecked fruit.
No.
So that you need to use right away.
If it was whole, is it kind of like tomatoes where it likes to be stored on its crown because of how squishy it can get?
No, I always store mine, with the stem side up. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that's really critical. I think either way you're going to be fine.
Okay.
Let's get rid of the bird damage. I don't think we need that. Look at that beautiful color. That's a spectacular piece of fruit.
That's going to go out to the chickens.
Absolutely, and they're going to love it.
They love it. They've been following us around the entire time we've been out here.
They've been eating all day. Probably had one of the best meals they've had in a while.
Hey.
Here's the persimmons.
Persimmons.
It doesn't get much better than that.
It's crazy. It's crunchy. It's sweet. I've had them where they get a little softer than that, but there's so much flavor there already. Well, so you're saying that this flavor, as it sits on the counter, it's going to just develop a little more as it ripens even further?
You're going to get a little more conversions into sugar, so it'll get a little bit sweeter, it'll get a little bit softer, you'll get a little bit brighter, orangey, reddish orangey color. But literally, a fruit that didn't have the bird damage on it, you could set it on the counter and it's good for 2 or 3 weeks.
As we enjoy some more of this persimmon, why don't you check out a video that I did on persimmons, the difference between a Fuyu and a Hachia, that I'm going to have listed right here. And I thank you, Tom, for coming in. Be sure to check out Tom Spellman's channel, Growing with Tom Spellman. I'll link that in the description too. And whether you've got one type of persimmon that you're munching on or 500, until next time, stay busy.